Right, good Friday to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to today's European Outlook. There is no live stream this upcoming Sunday, by the way, but I do promise to have a European Outlook tomorrow. We're going to look a little bit at the run up to Christmas. We're going to also look at a little bit more detail with regards to the stratosphere, the decoupled stratosphere that we've got at the moment here. We're going to start to see changes taking place with the colder temperatures up in the upper levels of the stratosphere perhaps start to propagate into the lower stratosphere, and what implications that may have into next week and beyond. So we're going to look at a few technical aspects with regards to the bigger, broader hemisphere-wide pattern in tomorrow's video. And then on Sunday, instead of having a live stream, I will have the 120th edition of the Global Weather and Climate Report, but it just won't be alive, unfortunately, this week. I happen to be going to a Christmas panto with the family, so a little time off from the live streams, but they will be back next Sunday afternoon. But I want to show you the here now versus what we have coming up. This is off the arpege model. We've got the high pressure now starting to, it's been gradually weakening over the last 24 or 48 hours. It's now starting to sink south, and we're starting to see the presence of fronts moving in to the northwest. If we look at the latest radar imagery here, if I can get to the out with an advert, you can see here that we are starting to pick up on some rainfall in a more appreciable fashion, moving into west and northwestern areas of the UK. That frontal system will move southwards. It will weaken as it does so, as it bumps into higher pressure across southern Scotland and the rest of England and Wales. We've also got some heavy rainfall associated with that. That's going to introduce cleaner air during the course of tomorrow. There will be a bank of cloud that will hold the temperatures up during the overnight across southern areas of the British Isles as that front moves south, but will clean things out further north. We may see some patchy frost, temperatures getting close to the freezing mark, and a few spots slightly below in some shelter. But you can see off this arpege model the change coming up. We've got a few frontal systems moving in from the west and northwest, and you notice that the orientation of the pattern is completely changed. Instead of having a 1040 plus millibar high centered over northern UK for the best part of this week, we've now got it centered down towards the Bay of Biscay region here. We've got frontal systems moving across the top of that high, and due to that, we are going to see some decent amounts of rainfall between now and the middle portions of next week. If we look at the total accumulated precipitation, according to the arpege model, this is how things pan out through the course of the weekend and into early next week. We could see some very beefy totals across western Scotland, for example, even across northwest Wales, northwest of England, and northwestern portions of Ireland and Northern Ireland. We may see some decent amounts of rainfall as well, but it's really this west coast of Scotland. Very dry, as you know, across the south and the east of the UK. We're going to see a pretty big rain shadow effect taking place between western versus eastern Scotland. Also western portions of Norway as well, going to be picking up on some significant amounts of moisture. Thanks to this high now pushed to the south, allowing the weather to come in over the top. If we look at Scotland specifically, I want to show you this here, and you can see the amount of rainfall that is expected between now and Tuesday 11 UTC. So we've got as much as over 200 millimetres of rain expected in the upslope areas of West Highland, for example. Barely a drop of rain, if you notice, across the eastern side of the country. So that is a very stark contrast, if you notice here, between east and west over Scotland. So upcoming 5 days, we do have warmer than average coming up. We are starting to see the region become a little bit more focused over the middle altitudes. That's also going to push a little bit further north. And what it's going to do is it's going to help the heights over the Arctic and start to lower. And therefore, we are continuing to see this strengthen in the polar vortex. It has been fairly strong in the upper levels of the stratosphere, but it looks as if it's going to start to propagate further down through the column and into the lower portions of the stratosphere. But we'll look at that in more detail in tomorrow's video, so stay tuned for that. Maybe a slightly later video tomorrow evening as well. because I've got a pretty busy day coming up. But there will be one, and it should be an interesting one. We're going to look at the some of the technical explanation with regards to stratosphere, the MJO, for example, as well. We're seeing a bit of movement with that. We're also seeing a slight strengthening of the Central Pacific La Nina signal, also due to the positioning of the MJO and the distribution of winds at the surface, allowing that cooling to take place over the Central Pacific. What implications does that have down the road? This is interesting. This is the latest off the GFS. I was going to say the ECM, the GFS ensemble. This is now the period between the 18th and the 23rd of December. A lot of uncertainty. I have to say this, folks. A lot of uncertainty towards the back half of next week and into the week of Christmas. But it's interesting how the modelling is starting to pick up on a colder than average across Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland, still warmer than average across England and Wales. Then the 11 to 15, this is the period between 23rd and 20th of December. And we've got close to average, some slightly above, some slightly below average across the UK. And also France and Iberia is running below average as well. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one going forward. This is a very short and sweet video today, I'm afraid. But we will have warming temperatures this upcoming weekend. We are going to see southerly winds developing, and we are going to see temperatures possibly into the low teens, even across northern UK and Ireland and Northern Ireland as we progress towards the early portions of next week. Because if we go back to the view here that I want to pull up, let's look at the overview, and you can see the current setup here looks like this. We've got that area of high pressure now starting to get sunk south. It's all thanks to that Arctic outbreak that's pushing south over eastern North America. That is reinvigorating the Atlantic jet stream. That is pushing its way eastwards across the Atlantic and forcing the high southwards and creating a much more zonal flow across not just the Atlantic, but we're seeing it across the Northern Hemisphere as well. But notice here that we'll play through this loop and you can see the very, very flat, very zonal flow that is now created across the North Atlantic here. Low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south. That is a textbook positive North Atlantic oscillation. This is 19 UTC on Sunday. You can see here all that rain as that hose pipe of moisture runs along the top of that south displaced high. And this is much more climatological in terms of the setup, the synoptic scale setup as we progress through the coming days. And that rain just continues to hose the northwest of the UK. But it's as we move towards the early and middle portions of next week, you notice here that we're starting to see low pressure gathering further south over the North Atlantic. That, with high pressure to the east, is pulling much milder conditions in from the south. And we could see some fairly decent warmth for the time of the year getting lifted north. I say warmth, obviously, it's all within reason, of course. But look at the ECMWF for the same time frame. We can see this area of low pressure spinning out over the North Atlantic, but it's the southward displacement of the trough versus the high over Europe that's going to allow some of that fairly mild subtropical Canaries, Azores sourced air to then get projected north ahead of the system over the UK and Ireland, and that's shown very nicely in this 850 temperature chart. You can see here that the milder conditions get wafted northwards over the UK and Ireland. We'll look at specifics in terms of the temperatures in the coming days to come, but plenty of reasons to stick around here in the channel. As always, like and subscribe. See you tomorrow with a look at the Christmas week and some stratospheric chat as well, so stay tuned for that. Enjoy your rest of your Friday. Bye for now.